And I just want to remind everyone before we get started here to please make sure to submit your questions through the app, and we'll be sure to get to them at the end of the session today. All right, so I'm here with Niki and Josh. They are first cousins and fourth generation co-owners of Russ Daughters, a incredibly famous Jewish appetizing shop on the Lower East Side. It's been in operation in some form or another since 1914, so that's 104 years of operation. Niki, Josh, I want to start out by saying thank you so much for joining us today. I know these past couple of days haven't been easy.
Yeah, we lost our grandmother a few days ago. She was the last of the surviving daughters of Russ Daughters. She was 97, so she was definitely one of a kind. Yeah. So we are still sort of remembering her, celebrating her. So we're going to go from here to the Shiva afterwards tonight.
And you were telling me backstage that people are a little nervous about.
Well, it's sort of, so if you've been to a Shiva, you know the tradition. It's customary that people bring food or send food to the grieving family. But in our case, I heard from several people who said, I was really intimidated. I didn't know what I could possibly bring to the Russ Daughters family Shiva, because typically you'll bring,
Russ Daughters,
like bagels, smoked fish, So someone said, I was going to bring kimchi because I couldn't think. I want to just bring something, that would have been on the
apple
table.
pie.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, they're like, oh, should I give this to them? And we had a spread of our own food. But.
Nice. All right, well, Russ Daughters is such a storied brand with such a long history. But since you both have taken over ownership in 2009, it's expanded a lot. You have a full-service restaurant just down the block. You have a restaurant and a takeout counter inside the Jewish Museum on the Upper East Side. You have your own bakery. And you're working on your full-blown production facility inside the Brooklyn Navy Yard. So I'm curious, did you know that you wanted to do all of this expansion from the get-go?
Well, I think when we came together as a team, we knew that the original store, as beautiful and as of a gem as it is, was sort of missing part of the experience. People increasingly wanted to come to Russ Daughters to eat Russ Daughters, and they couldn't do that at the store other than just sitting on the bench outside. And so having a sit-down restaurant just felt like an organic next move.
Also, the office was too small for the both of us. Back of the store.
Yeah.
And we literally had customers who would walk into our shop and walk into our kitchen because they just assumed there must be tables back
Where are
there.
the seats?
Where are the seats? But we weren't restaurateurs. So first we had to actually look at our shop and our business as it was and improve the systems. We literally inherited a mom and pop. My mom and my pop ran the store. And so we made changes that hopefully our customers wouldn't, even notice. Like a POS system and our, HVAC and just
The most frightening change we ever made was a reach-in refrigerator. We had this old, sliding door, stand-up refrigerator that was pretty old, didn't work very well, it was hard to see anything in it. And like Niki said, the ideal change and development and improvement of the business would happen without any customers noticing it. So we put in this big reach-in refrigerator. We took down a whole wall of all the things we have on the shelves and put in this reach-in refrigerator. And customers would come in and be like, what do you think? Like, what do you think of what? I was like, of the new refrigerator. Like, what new refrigerator? I was like, yeah. Did it? It worked.
I'm surprised because your customers, would know.
They know, and people do not want us to change. Russ Daughters is this weird anomaly, in a city like New York and in our culture, modern day culture, where we kind of look for things to constantly changing and be new and different. People don't want change at Russ Daughters. So we were actually really felt this. We were stressed out, frankly, if we open this restaurant, how is it going to be received? And it was interesting. We actually went and talked to a lot of our peers who are very well-known, successful restaurateurs, And a bunch of them actually tried to dissuade us. But the best piece of advice we got was, Russ Daughters Cafe is going to be a huge success as long as you don't forget who you are. Stay true to what Russ Daughters is, and it'll be a success. And that's what we always go back to. Is our original store is the kind of center of inspiration and a reference point for everything we've done since. So we always look back to that store, not to try to recreate it, because you can't make a carbon copy of 104 years of living history. That would just feel like, trying to make like the Disney version of Russ Daughters. But we look to that shop as, how do we stay true to Russ Daughters?
It's like the epicenter of the soul or the idea of what Russ Daughters is. We always go back to the shop to say, how should we design this, new retail counter in the Navy Yard? And, you take elements of the shop, but not a duplication, not a replication.
How long did it take from the point where you started, first opening the restaurant to when you saw success and you're like, oh, okay, this is all right?
Very unusually, not very long.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had some debt still. It wasn't, but in terms of getting in the black, it was just 3 months.
3 months.
Oh.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is very
Pretty
unusual.
unusual.
Yeah.
But I think that was, we had literally 4 generations worth of customers. And the challenge, as I said, was to make sure that they felt like this was their place, because people feel this incredible ownership of Russ Daughters. And just even within the week we did Friends and Family, the kind of general response we got was, what took you guys so long? We waited 100 years for this. You finally opened a restaurant?
There was
So-
some skepticism going in
Yeah.
from quite a few customers.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? You're not restaurateurs. Why would you open a restaurant? And we're like, well, we think it's appropriate, and we really want to offer that experience and curate that sit-down experience, how we see it should be done. And the reception was very good.
What about the reception from your family? What does your family think of what you've done?
Similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So our grandmother, who just passed away, of all people, was the most supportive. And you have to realize that she was basically forced to work in the store starting at the age of 14. She wasn't allowed to go to college. Even her husband had to be approved to be a good worker. So Russ Daughters for her was not a choice. And for her to see her grandkids choose to grow it, she was our biggest cheerleader. My father, who ran the shop with my mother, for 30 years before us, was the most skeptical, because he was there in the period when the Lower East Side of Manhattan was nowhere anyone wanted to be. Running a food business there was nothing glamorous. There was no Skift Forum. There was no, Food Network. It was just a terrible grind. And so he was kind of very risk adverse. So he was really concerned that we were going to take Russ Daughters and somehow dilute it or ruin it, and that the legacy would, be gone.
Still talks about cannibalizing our customers.
Yeah,
Like,
but
no.
now he's changed. He's done a 180, and he likes to come into the restaurant and sit down and schmooze with his customers, and then say, like, put it on my tab, and then walk out.
Nice. Yeah, speaking of your dad, I've seen him hanging outside the shop when I've been there, talking with customers, having a great time. I'm curious, is he still involved in the ownership decisions that you're making? No.
No,
He is
Definitely
a
not.
consigliere at this point. Very Jewish term.
We
But,
like
no.
to say that the secret to keeping a multi-generational family business alive is limiting the number of family involved. So it's just the two of us.
He certainly offers up suggestions and
Yeah.
support and comments about what he thinks about everything.
Is it
And then
challenging? I'm sure. And was it challenging, especially in the beginning, given that you had to draw a line in the sand there and say, like, no, we're...
Well, that transition from him owning and operating this business for 30 years to me starting to take control of the business, and then Niki came in and we together started taking more control of the business, was a very long process, and I would imagine a very difficult process for Mark, because that was his life. It was our grandmother's life. You know, it's what they did, and to stop doing that is not like a switch that you turn off. So, but the process, you know, as I took more and more control of what was going on, and Niki, we together took more and more control, he sort of inched away. And by 2009, 2010, he was like, he felt comfortable that we had the business's best interests in mind and would benefit the business more than he could at that point. And still, it took a little time.
Yeah.
It was a hard adjustment. Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about the staff in the shop. Some people have been with you for a very long time, is that right?
Yes, I mean, we joke that if you've been working at Russ Daughters for less than 10 years, you're still in training. And we have customers who will walk in and they'll be very, have this look on their face and say, what's going on here? It's all new faces behind the counter. And we'll realize they're talking about one person, and that person has already been working here for like 8 years, but there's, so the stability of our staff at the shop is really part of that continuity that Russ Daughters provides, the continuity of the place, the food, the smells, and the people on both sides of the counter. Now, within 4 years, starting from 2014 till now, we've grown from 20 employees to 120 employees. And so now, having restaurants, we have, and a bakery, shipping facility, we have a whole kind of a diversity of staff. And so you see some people are, hopefully going to be with us for 20 years, and then other people are, much more transient. And so for us, it's kind of brought in as employers, and people want to provide experience. It's been an interesting development.
We need to figure out what keeps these employees in Russ Daughters for so long.
Yeah.
Because the restaurants are quite different, the bakery is different. There's a lot more in and out and turnover of employees. And I mean, our theory is there's something beyond the physical, the food and the look of the place, and it's a 100-year-old business that we've tried to, like hold on to that connection to the history. And there's this the soul of the place lives beyond anything we could describe or be, and the employees actually feel that, and it's really welcomed into this family experience.
Do you have legacy employees situated in each different outpost that you do? No.
No.
We considered taking employees from the store and putting them in other places, but in part, the employees were like, no, don't really want to do that, and in part, we didn't want it to affect. We've opened 2 restaurants. We have another counter. We have a bakery, but like we said, the epicenter of our business is the store, and we don't want to affect that at all. So to pull out this continuity and these old employees from the store would change the dynamic and the feeling of that place, and that's the most important thing to us.
Right, because you have the customers who have been coming there for so long, having the same people who work with them.
I see some of them in the room.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of customers, you do have customers who have been coming for 50, 60, 70 years, and then you have, I was in the shop on Saturday and I would see people my age, also grabbing their bagels and lox, Instagramming it, whatever. So how do you speak to such a wide breadth of customers?
I think the fact that Josh and I are there, and people see a younger generation who have chosen to do this work and has sort of inspired a younger generation of customers. And I think there's a real interest, millennials and whatnot, to really seek out places that have a genuine legacy They want to tap into history. They want to, have an experience that can't be just mediated through a screen. And the fact that young people will come to Russ Daughters, take a number, wait in line, sometimes for a very long amount of time, or wait for a table at Russ Daughters Cafe for, up to 2 hours, is remarkable to me, and an affirmation that there's something something very true or deep to our experience as people, that we want to be in a communal setting, and we want to feel like we're part of a continuum of history and lived experience. And for young people who could just get on their phones and order with a click, that they're coming and they want to be part of Russ Daughters tells me that hopefully we can keep going for a 5th and 6th generation.
You say, how do we speak to the different generations?
Yeah.
And along with all that stuff, when we sit in a room and talk about merchandising or selling stuff for quality, we're not speaking to anyone. We're speaking to what we know and what we've done for 100 years, and maintaining that continuity and quality. And so we're happy that it's enjoyed by all generations, but we're trying in everything that we do to stick to tradition and what we've done for 100 years and maintain that.
But it's this kind of dance that we do, this kind of interesting challenge we have, which is, how do you maintain 104 years of tradition, but also keep it moving forward and also innovate? And I think to do one or of those separately is kind of more logical. We have a challenge of having to do these two seemingly incongruous things at the same time. And so there's that, this is the question that comes up in every decision we make, from like, what plates are we going to put in, to use at the restaurant, to, how do we just refine our babka recipe? We're trying to walk this very fine line, because we can't move so far ahead that we alienate our customers who have 100 years of history with us, and demand that the babka tastes the same way it did when they were a kid, right? At the same time, you can't just be stagnant and just stay the same. So
to bring it all the way back around, that the change in the store, the innovation that Niki and I talk about constantly is imperceptible change to the public and everyone around us. But behind the scenes, everything is constantly changing, getting more organized, and our ability to
But even the
more and grow
perceptible
more.
changes, like opening, an Upper East Side location. After 100 years of just being in Lower Manhattan, we went uptown, opened Russ Daughters at the Jewish Museum. Now opening in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, a huge, our bakery is going to be on view to the public with a adjoining shop and counter.
Something like 18,000 square feet.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
we built out 18,000 square feet of our back end baking, shipping, food making, offices, like that'll be our base for years to come. But even that, I think with each change, if the test or the proof for us that it was the right move was when someone says to us, that makes sense, of course you would do that. And then we know we're still staying in line with what Russ Daughters is, but also taking a next step.
Was there a time that you made a mistake? Had to roll something back?
We almost made a mistake when we were about to sign a lease for Russ Daughters Cafe, and it was going to be in Chelsea. And because we had toyed with the idea of like, okay, we're going to open a restaurant, and we've been, maybe we should move outside of the Lower East Side. And it was the night before we were going to sign the lease for this big space in Chelsea, and I kid you not, I was starting to have like a panic attack and just think like, this is not right. This feels wrong to me. And Josh called me on the phone. He said, this isn't right. And I think it crystallized for us that the Russ Daughters Cafe had to be on the Lower East Side because the Lower East Side is such an integral part of the experience of our food and, the Jewish immigrant history. And so many of our customers trace their family roots back to this one neighborhood in Manhattan. And so our sit-down had to be as close to the store as possible. So I'm so glad we didn't make that mistake. Having done that, then when we considered opening on the Upper East Side, it felt like we could do that. And so.
Yeah. All right, I want to grab an audience question here. I like this one. Will I always have to take a number?
Yes.
Why?
Yes, when you come to the Brooklyn Navy Yard, you will have to take a number. But that's part of the experience, right?
How else would it be done?
We're not gonna give you one of those buzzer things.
There is a story pre-numbers. It was like a free-for-all.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's called the CU system. So countermen would have their favorite customers, and customers would have their favorite countermen. And so when you'd walk into the store, you'd make eye contact with the counterman, and he would say, "I see you," and then would have to kind of just remember the order of who he was going to help. But you can imagine when it got busy, it just turned into probably a riot.
I think I totally saw that happen on Saturday, though, when I was there.
Uh-oh.
I know. I had my number
That's
and
not
somebody
good.
else.
See you.
Yeah. No, sorry. Okay. Let's see here. Has the explosion in popularity of modern Jewish food across the country been surprising to you?
Yes and no. We get asked a lot, like, how does it feel to be part of a trend? Jewish food is so trendy now. And, we don't see it that way. From our vantage point, our family has been serving Jewish food. I don't know if you can call 104 years a trend, right? And we were doing it long before it was ever popular. It was really just to sustain poor immigrants and provide them the food that reminded them of home. And trends inevitably come and go, and we will still be doing this when something else is trendy.
The short answer is no. It hasn't been a surprise because we appreciate and love Jewish cuisine, and it's been our life for so long. We're about time. It should.
Well, I will say one thing that has been surprising and sort of hard to grapple with is we have seen quite a number of Russ Daughters copycats pop up, not just all over the country, but internationally. And I know you're supposed to think that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but when you see something that is just clearly just just a pure just plagiarism, or it kind of hurts. It's like a punch to the gut, because this is what our family has done for 100 years. It's been our survival. We didn't. Russ Daughters has just lived organically, and I think in this day and age when there's Pinterest and you can just pull your inspirations from here and there, and people don't realize that no, that's not. That's copying, I want people to go out and maybe be inspired by what we do, but then put their own spin on it. So that's been hard, and we've struggled with how we address that.
But rest assured, the fish will never be as good as what you're doing.
And I think people have a genuine, people can tell sort of, and are looking for authenticity, right? So I think people will know, and we trust that, and we just keep doing what we're doing, keep our heads down. But that has been a surprising, I didn't realize that would happen, aspect of our growth.
All right, well, looks like we're out of time. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Great.